Welcome to Strikeout Bros. What's up, Lash?
What's going on, man? We got a lot to talk about on this special edition podcast today.
Yeah, definitely. Today's episode is going to be based on the pariahs of the MLB. It's going to be an interesting subject for sure. And I hope you enjoy it. Set it off, Lash.
So, the number one topic every baseball fan knows about is the great umpire. Well, not a lot of people won't call him great, but the long time tenured umpire in the majors. His name is Angel Hernandez. He has been calling games since 1991. Um, During his 30 plus year career as a major league umpire, he's kind of gotten himself into some couple controversies um, that usually involves balls and strikes calls and outs during bang bang plays. Um, so reason why we're talking about him now because recently we had a couple of situations on April 12th. Angel Hernandez was working a game, um, the Texas Rangers game, and one of the players, Wyatt Langford, was at bat, and it was a 2-0 count. And Langford didn't seem to like the calls. Um, Hernandez kept on calling him the pitchers strikes when they're clearly way outside the box, and he was just missing like crazy, and it basically got the Rangers upset. It got Langford upset because essentially you're taking the bat away from him, and also you took away a potential run. If he had gotten on, who knows? Anything can happen. The saying in baseball. The goal is get yourself on base and see where it takes you. A lot
Yeah,
of things can happen. Once you get a man on base, it adds more pressure to the defense. It adds more pressure to the pitcher. The pitcher's got to throw it quicker. He's got to worry about whether you're going to steal or not. If he throws it to first, is my guy going to catch the ball? Or a lot of things can go wrong, especially if the runner on base is a speedster who can steal bases like Acuna or things like that.
yeah, I agree. It's really bad. It's crazy because Langford worked the count at 2-0, and it was his third round, and the pitcher was JP France to be exact, and three consecutive pitches outside the strike zone. And the reports are that the pitches were at least 7 inches away from the strike zone. So this guy is really hurting the game. I don't like him at all. Like, I think he's a pariah. Like, we said, he needs to be fired. He needs to retire. He needs to do something. This guy's making $500,000 a year, and it's a very important job. So I'm almost thinking it's time to go AI with it. Or have somebody behind watching, the cameras and saying, all right, that's a legitimate strike. Let's call that. And he should be in control of the strikes and balls, because imagine if it's a pivotal series and you're trying to make the postseason, or imagine if it was like the World Series and your team loses because of those calls. This guy's unfair. This guy's been around for too long. If anything, I would think that he'd be the best at the job, but he's really bad for the game. I don't appreciate what he's doing at all. There's a lot of reports out there. The umpire auditor history is stating that this guy has the worst percentages in the game. And it's really, really a shame that this guy still has a job and he's able to even call balls and strikes behind the plate. All right, if he's having that much of a problem, put him on third, put him on second. This way, teams can challenge those plays, because you can't challenge balls and strikes in MLB. I mean, they're trying to speed up the process. They're trying to speed up the game. They're trying to make games shorter and a lot more fun for the fan base. But at this point, I don't agree with any of that. And I understand, we had a conversation about this earlier, and we were talking about how imagine if balls and strikes were being challenged. It would really take away from the game. It would slow down the pace of the game, and yeah, it might get a little boring. But at the end of the day, if my team is in the championship and Angel Hernandez is behind the plate calling balls and strikes the way he does, I'm gonna be really upset. It's gonna make me not want to watch the game anymore, especially when this guy's behind the plate. It's crazy. It's really crazy. You know, players are getting fined for voicing their opinions on these calls, and all right, I understand. It's like shooting, you know, obscenities at the ump and getting really upset. Of course, you're building stats, and you know that pitch was in a strike. Why are you getting called out when you shouldn't be? You're a professional player and you're trying to build stats. You're trying to, you know, win the game. And this guy's taking away from the game. It's horrible. You know, Ian Kinsler was fined $10,000 for voicing his opinions on this guy in 2017. This has been going on for his whole career. You know, and obviously all the fans in baseball are super upset that this guy even has a job. He's making like $500,000 a year to call games, and then I believe he was upset and that he wasn't able to really call out of games in the postseason. But obviously, think about it; these are important games. Why would we allow you to call a game? That means that the league knows that this guy is doing the wrong thing. So why is he able to call regular games? Because every single game counts in baseball. Perfect example. The Mets last year needed to win one more game against Atlanta at the end of the season to become the number one seed. What happened? They lost. But Angel Hernandez didn't, call any of those games. But imagine if he was. Imagine.
Yeah, no, you're right. His decisions can sway the outcome of a game in a big series. A strike, if it's bases loaded with two outs in the bottom of the ninth, and you're down by one run, and what looks like a ball, and he calls a strike, that's the game. You lose that game in the series, it could tip the whole series. Or if it's Game 7 in the World Series, and you lose it, you essentially lost the game due to the umpire. And they always tell you in sports, don't ever put the game in the umpire's hands. Always make sure you take control of the game. But in a situation like this, balls and strikes, you have no choice but to put it up to the umpire's hand, because it's up the umpire's discretion on what's a ball and strike. And baseball doesn't allow the coaches or the players to argue balls and strikes. And if you do, you're getting kicked out. So that's the other risk you take. So if you do argue and you're a star on your team and you get kicked out because of it, you just lost a great offensive and a defensive piece to your team. And a teams can't afford, the Mets can't afford to lose Alonso because he wanted to give Angel Hernandez a piece of his mind over a ball that was 3 feet out of the zone. But so that's the other risk you take if you're a team or a player. Um, I
Yeah,
don't know what Major League's going to do. I think what they should do is from the ninth inning on, you can argue balls and strikes and you can challenge it. And the way they should do it, the player will tap his hand on his helmet and say, "I would like to challenge that play, please." And then all three umpires can go review and then send it back to Secaucus, New Jersey, where they review the plays. Because if you allow balls and strikes to be reviewed throughout the whole game, the game will just be so slow. So you can't afford that. So I think they should have a rule where, like, you can argue balls and strikes, but it has to be ninth inning on, and maybe you can have a limit, like you only can argue 5 times or 3 times. I don't know. So who knows?
yeah, yeah. That makes
But they need
sense.
to do something. And the baseball needs to suspend him, or I don't know, but they're not going to do that because he's been around for 30 plus 35 years, I think. And from what I've heard, minus the calls on the field, He's a great team leader. As you all know, each game has four umpires, and one of those umpires is the lead umpire for that game. It's just like in football, you have a lead official, and all the other officials go with what the lead umpire tells them to do or says. And from what I've heard, he's great with his staff. He treats everyone well. He takes care of people, which is great. But in the game of baseball, in the moment, we could care less how nice you are. It's about whether you get the job done, and that
Probably.
applies to the real world. Our jobs that we do. If my boss asks me to do something and I don't do it, they don't care that I'm a nice person outside of work. It's whether I can do the job at the moment. And so that's the same thing. So I don't know what baseball would need to do. I highly doubt they're going to suspend him. If he was young and he was just coming up, yeah, they're more likely to be like, all right, man, you need to sit down and take a break. But he's been around for such a long time, and he's the only umpire that they have issues with.
Yeah.
So
The
it's
thing
really
about
not an umpire issue.
the thing about baseball is all right. All right. So every team knows, depending on who's officiating the game, things are gonna change. We have pitcher friendly umps. You have umps that favor the batters, and it changes from day to day. That's fine, because there's a lot of umps that call on the line. They call on the black. Those are pitcher friendly umps, but there's umps that they favor the batter, because they want the game to be a little bit more exciting. All right, so I know it changes from day to day. I understand that. But when you're calling a strike, when it's 7 inches outside the strike zone, that's a serious problem. So I don't agree with what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see them doing anything. I think they're just gonna have to deal with it, and managers and players are just either just not argue anymore, or they'll just continue arguing and get take the fines and get written up, whatever the case may be, kicked out. There's nothing you can do. I guess I don't know what else to do, but in my opinion, like you said, do something. But I don't see MLB doing nothing, so you just deal with it. And the only way they would do something is if it's an issue with all the umpires, the majority of the umpires are making bad calls during games, then you have an issue, and they see that the games are being churned, or the results of the game are due to the calls of an umpire. Then they're going to do something.
Yeah,
But if
you're
it's
talking
just
about
one person, they're not going to do that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
you're talking about a pandemic at this point.
Yeah.
So a pandemic. So it's okay. You know what, Mr. Angel Hernandez, we salute you for not doing the right thing, because we can't get rid of you. So let's just call it a handicap for the MLB at this point. It's a handicap. It's like a pool player, you know, hitting the ball with one eye open. You know, it's insane, but it is what it is. We can't change it. We can't do anything about it, and we're just gonna have to swallow it.
Yeah. But anyway, as you know, Pablo, all the players that play in the major leagues, every one of these players have what we call sports agents. What are sports agents? They're the representative of the players. And what they do is they literally go to bat, no pun intended, for the players when they're about to pursue a new contract, or when they're about to pursue a new contract with a new team once they either hit free agency, or they once they hit free agency or get drafted into the majors. So one of the biggest sports agents that we've known about is a gentleman by the name of Scott Boras. He's been around since the 1980s. He's represented one of probably the top tier clients of the world, of all the Major League Baseballs, you name it, the Jeters of the world, the Alex Rodriguez's of the world, um, Stantons of the world. So many players I can't, I don't know off the top of my head. But this off season, he had a really bad off season. As you know, he had several players: Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell,
JD Martinez,
J.D.
Matt
Mart.
Chapman,
Yes, and they
Cody Bellinger.
Cody and Bellinger. And anyway, they were free agents, and Scott Boras is known for waiting until the end of the season to pursue a contract or to negotiate. Well, what he did this reason why he lost his offseason is he waited way too long. He thought people were going to bite on his clients, and they never did. And so what happened was it forced his clients to just take whatever offer was given because the season was coming to start so soon that they had no choice. So they took either they most of them took less money, and probably some players went to places they didn't want to play because of it. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's horrible. I think that Scott Boras is causing a problem in the MLB. A lot of these players didn't even get to go to spring training, and they had to train on their own and try to figure it out and stay ready for the season. But this hurts clubs because a lot of these players that moved on to new clubs were unable to build team chemistry, and that hurts the team. It hurts the team because you want that chemistry. You want people to say, "All right, I know what's going on." You want to be able to practice with your team. I believe spring training is like what 20 something games. Those games mean a lot, because they don't count, but they mean a lot because it builds a chemistry, and you're able to figure out the kinks along the way prior to the season. And a lot of these players were unable to do that because of Mr. Boris. He's all right. He's trying to get you the most money. He's trying to get you, to be successful and feel like you were wanted by this team. But I think a lot of these teams are tired of talking to Boris because Boris is always, looking for that serious money, and of course he gets a percentage of it. So obviously, he has an interest, but I don't think that that's the right move for Mr. Boris. I think he's not thinking about the player. He's thinking about himself at this point. Look at Montgomery. Montgomery's a perfect example. All right, Montgomery had a great season, was able to accomplish a lot of goals in the postseason and help his team win the championship. And then, he doesn't get to go right into it again because Mr. Boris is holding out and saying, "Oh, that's not enough." Look at his resume. Look what he did last season, and he ended up going with a 1 year deal. He was projected to make 105 million over 5 years, and he settled on a 1 year contract. So now, after this season, if he doesn't perform well, we're gonna call that a bust, right? And he was smart because he decided to get rid of Mr. Boris. It's not working out. He didn't like the way his this guy moved, and Bellinger had to resign with the Chicago Cubs. I'm not saying that he didn't want to do that, but he ended up with 80 million for a 3 year deal late in February. So he's really causing a problem for these players in the league. How about Snell? Snell's another guy. Snell was the Cy Young winner, and he ended up with 62 million for 2 years with the Giants. And he ended up inking that deal on March 19th. So he was a late arrival. You don't think that causes problems for the player and how he approaches the season, not knowing where he's going to pitch and what team he's going to play for? I think it does.
No, definitely. And the other guy I want to bring up was the third baseman, Matt Chapman. He got a he's a Matt Chapman. He got a deal with the San Francisco Giants for a 3 year deal worth about $54 million, and I he was projected to get a lot more because he's a 4 time Gold Glover third baseman, and he got way less. So he had no
Yeah,
choice but to settle. Um, I don't know what his projections were, but I can tell you that it was more than what he was given.
yeah.
I
JD Martinez, another example. JD
Yeah.
Martinez, the Mets just finished playing the Dodgers, and JD Martinez last year had over 100 RBIs and 30 something home runs. He had a really strong season. The Mets just finished going to LAD to play the Dodgers. You think that would have that would have been a pivotal piece in the Mets lineup because he's used to playing there. You know, everything. You know, the demographics of a field. I'm pretty sure JD knew those demographics really well. But guess what? He was unable to play in that series because he was a late signing. He ended up grabbing that 1 year deal with the Mets. I know the Mets are trying to stay young, but that's not the point. The point is that a player like JD Martinez can change the dynamic of a team, especially when he can give Alonso protection and he can give a lot of the big bats protection, depending on where he's on, where they put him in the lineup. But he's still, and I think in St. Lucie trying to get it together. I understand he got hurt and he needed a shot because he had back problems, but all this could have been ironed out during spring training. But due to the late signing, guess what? He's still not here. $12 million and he's still not available. That's super interesting. Everybody's looking in and everybody's, you know, pointing fingers at Scott Boras. And it makes sense. I think he's definitely another pariah in MLB, causing serious problems. And next year, after the season is over, he has big guns. He has Pete Alonso and he has Juan Soto. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, next offseason he's definitely gonna take a different approach. I think he's not gonna wait as long, and he's basically gonna go up to his clients and say, um, you know, which do you have which teams do you prefer to play for? And I would put out there, hey, listen, these are the teams he wants to play for. I'm sorry, but not all 30 teams are going to be on his list to play. This is who he wants to go for. All right, now that we know which teams he really wants to potentially play for, those 3 or 4 teams can battle out how much they want to give Scott Boras his client. And I think that might be the approach he might do next year. But it'll be interesting either way. I don't feel sorry for these players. They get their money either way. He gets paid. Um, like I said, I'm not crying for the Chapmans of the world or Snows. If I'm getting $54 million a year, you know what? I'll take it. It's better than most people will take.
Yeah,
So
you're
it's
pretty
not
much
like he
set for
got.
life.
Yeah, it's not like he got. It's not like Chapman's getting $100,000 for the next 5 years. It's no, it's way more than that. So I think they'll be okay. Yeah, sometimes it's just what it is. But I don't think next year with Soto. Remember these free agents that were free agents this past year? They're not like top tier superstars like the Judges of the world, the Alonsos, the Sotos of the world. Those guys are gonna get eaten up fast. So they're not gonna wait all month. Teams aren't gonna wait till the end of February to sign, a big player like that. They want to sign it the immediate as soon as the offseason starts, they're gonna start bidding for him and they're gonna want to get him in their spring training camp and all that stuff. So I don't see that happening.
Yeah,
Scott
I
Boras is
agree.
gonna have to take a new approach and like I said, I think he'll be okay. My teams that I think that they will bet on Soto would be the New York Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers. There's a team that no one seems to be talking about, and that's the Orioles. The Orioles got a new ownership who's worth a lot of money now. They're no longer a cheap organization. That's a sleeper team. I'm interested to see if they would take a swing at Soto.
Yeah,
Um,
I wouldn't even consider them a low budget team anymore. I don't consider them bottom of the barrel. I consider those guys, an elite team at this moment, and they can only get better. And I'm pretty sure that Alonso and Juan Soto can see what's happening over there. It's a very hard division to win because everybody's playing well at the moment, but I think the Baltimore Orioles have what it takes to win it all. Not once, but multiple times. They're a young ball club, and in addition, like Alonso or Soto would totally solidify that.
yeah, no, definitely. It'll be interesting, but we'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't think these players are going to get rid of Boris. For the most part, he's been great. He's got them tons of money, so I'm not going to get rid of the guy because another player didn't get his money. At the end of the day, all the players care about is themselves and how much they can get in their pockets. And so that's all that matters. So I think Boris will be fine. The clients will be fine. He'll just have to take a new approach. And with that being said, the last topic on hand that I want to talk about would be Shohei Otani's former interpreter, Ipe Masahura. As you all know, he was caught for stealing $45 million, or yeah, $4 million from Otani's
Account.
account.
Yeah, this guy was betting on baseball, on betting on sports, period. I'm not 100% sure, but all I know is that this guy's getting off pretty easily. So far. So apparently he surrenders himself. He goes to court, right? He gets unsecured $25,000 bond, which pretty much means that he didn't have to pay that up front. But if he violates the conditions of this bond, then he's on the hook for it. But this is crazy to me. All right, so you have an interpreter, right? You really don't know the language. You're here to play baseball, and you trust this guy. This guy is pretty much, the the middleman for your interviews, the middleman for everything you do. So apparently, this is not something unheard of. Interpreters pretty much are like your left hand. They handle a lot of your business, and they're there to bridge the gap, right? But if this guy was really doing that and using Otani's name and impersonating Otani, this guy's kind of getting off pretty easily. He wants to apologize to Otani. He wants to, do all these amazing things after hurting him. But the funny thing about this guy is that he goes to court, right? He might get the max fine of $1 million and or up to 30 years in prison. But at this point, I think that there's something fishy going on. You know that Otani is America's sweetheart. Everybody loves him. He's a great player. He's a two-way player. They changed the rules of baseball for him. So even if MLB knew that this guy was gambling on games, they're not gonna showcase this information to the public. I don't think so. Because think about it. You change the rules of the game for this one guy, right? So apparently, if this guy, he's not pitching this year, but when he was pitching, let's happen to say that he's pitching in a big game, right? And he's also DHing for the club. If he gets pulled in the fourth inning, whatever inning, it doesn't matter, right? Because he's not having a good outing on the mound, he's able to stay in the game as the DH. Remember the good old days of National League Baseball, because I love them. When the pitcher was pulled, he no longer was able to bat. But guess what? We have this amazing two-way player now, and the rules have changed. So he's allowed to stay in the game as a DH even though he was pulled from the mound. All right, so you're doing all these great things to make sure that he's able to stay in it after getting pulled from the mound, and you're gonna chuck him from the game. Imagine if he was betting on the game. The Dodgers would lose on their big asset, and everybody would frown on what happened. But Epi decided that he was going to take all the charges, and he states that he was the one doing the gambling. Maybe Otani was telling him to gamble on certain games because you have a lot of access to this guy's account. So it's interesting. I feel like we'll never know the truth, but it's okay. It's okay. Listen, who am I to judge? Maybe this guy was really, bored and decided to, bet on the side to make more money than he was already making. But I think he's going to get off scot free. I think he's going to get fined. And obviously, he's no longer with the Dodgers because the Dodgers disbanded him. But this guy is the third pariah in MLB, in my eyes.
Yeah, like I said, I don't. The reason why the MLB is not going to do anything is because it doesn't really affect the game. It only affects game if we find out that he was betting on the Dodgers to win or lose, and then that hurts because then he has the leg up on through Otani on what each team they're versing is going to be doing, how this pitcher's doing, how that player plays against Otani and all that. So I don't think this guy was that stupid. He's pretty stupid because he got caught, but I don't know if he was betting on sports. But like I said, we won't know now. But I think once Otani retires, we'll find out then. But baseball's not going to do much because as long baseball is safe as long as they know for sure that it was not Otani that was making the bets through his interpreter. If that's the case, then he would have to be banned from the game. I don't care if he's the superstar of your league and he's the representative for your league. You can't allow that to happen.
Yeah,
But
I
anyway,
agree.
it's what it is. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But with that being said, we're coming to a close on this special edition episode.
Yeah,
We hope you like what you have to hear. If you like, please send us an email to
at
strikeout.
strikeoutbros@gmail.
Yeah,
Any
and
questions, any thoughts, please, by all means. But
it,
we're coming to the end of the
anyway,
show, and I hope you appreciate what was done today.
and stay tuned. We got more coming down the way. So we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye bye.